My name is Precious, and this is the story of how I lost everything. The last thing I remembered was the sharp pain in my chest. I gasped for air, my vision blurring as I collapsed on the cold, tiled floor of the hotel room. The man who had paid for my time stood over me, his face pale with panic. He fumbled with his phone, calling for help, but I knew it was too late. My body felt heavy, my mind drifting. I thought of my parents, their faces filled with pride whenever I sent them money. I thought of the church, the pastor's warnings I had ignored. And I thought of the life I had thrown away. As my eyes closed for the last time, I whispered, "I'm sorry. Let me take you back to where it all began." I was born in a small village in Enugu, Nigeria. I was the only child of Mr. and Mrs. Okonkwo, poor farmers who struggled to put food on the table. Despite their hardships, they valued education and worked tirelessly to send me to school. I was bright and ambitious, dreaming of a better life for myself and my parents. When I got admission into Lagos State University, my parents were overjoyed. They sold their only piece of land to pay my tuition and begged me to focus on my studies.
Education is your way out of poverty,
my father said, his voice filled with hope. But Lagos was a different world. The city was fast, loud, and overwhelming. I quickly realized that my parents' meager savings wouldn't cover my expenses. I needed money for food, transportation, and textbooks. Desperation began to creep in. That's when I met Chioma. One evening, my roommate, Chioma, noticed me struggling. She was stylish and always had money to spare. She wore expensive clothes and carried the latest phones. I couldn't help but wonder how she afforded such a lifestyle. "How do you do it?" I asked one night, my voice tinged with envy. Chioma smirked. "There are ways to make money in Lagos. You just have to be smart." I hesitated. "What do you mean?" Chioma leaned in closer. "Men are willing to pay for your time. All you have to do is give them what they want." My heart raced. I knew what Chioma was suggesting, but the thought terrified me. That's prostitution," I whispered. Chioma shrugged. "Call it what you want. But it's fast money. And in this city, you either survive or get left behind." I still remember my first time. My first client was a middle-aged man I met at a bar. He was polite and offered me a drink. When he asked me to come to his hotel room, I hesitated. But then I thought of my parents, their worn-out clothes, and the empty look in their eyes. I thought of the money I could send home. That night, I made a decision I would regret for the rest of my life. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy heart. But when I counted the money the man had left me, my guilt was replaced with excitement. It was more than my parents made in a month. I sent half of it home, telling my parents I had gotten a part-time job. They were thrilled. "Our daughter is doing well in Lagos," my mother exclaimed. I felt a pound of guilt but pushed it aside. I told myself it was just temporary. Once I had enough money, I would stop. But stopping wasn't as easy as I thought. Weeks turned into months, and my life became a cycle of classes, clients, and lies. I stopped attending church, avoiding the pastor's calls. I distanced myself from my old friends, afraid they would judge me. Chioma introduced me to more men, and my client list grew. I started wearing expensive clothes and carrying designer bags. My parents were proud, but they never questioned where the money was coming from. Then came the night I never forget. One night, I met a man who seemed different. He was rough and aggressive, and I felt uneasy. But I needed the money, so I ignored my instincts. The next morning, I woke up with bruises on my arms and a sinking feeling in my stomach. I vowed to be more careful, but the money was too tempting. My health began to deteriorate. I was constantly tired and had frequent headaches. One day, I fainted in class and was rushed to the hospital. The doctor's words shattered my world. "You have a severe sexually transmitted infection," he said. "If left untreated, it could be fatal." I broke down in tears. I thought of my parents, my dreams, and the life I had thrown away. I knew I was sick, but I didn't know how serious it was. The doctor wanted me to stay in the hospital, but I couldn't. I had a client to meet that night. I told myself I would go back to the hospital later. That night, I met a man at a hotel. He didn't ask questions, and I didn't tell him anything. But my body was too weak. My vision blurred. My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. I collapsed on the cold hotel floor, gasping for air. The world around me faded. I wanted to scream for help, but no sound came out. My heart pounded in my ears, then slowed down, and everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I was in the hospital. I felt light, as if I wasn't really there. My parents were sitting beside me, holding my hands, crying. Their faces were filled with pain. "Mama. Papa," my voice was weak. I had never seen them cry like this before. Tears streamed down my mother's face. My father, a strong man, sobbed like a child. "Why didn't you tell us?" my mother whispered. I wanted to tell them everything. So I did. I told them how I got here, the choices I made, the regret I carried. They listened, their hearts breaking with every word. "I'm sorry," I said. "I wanted a better life. I didn't know I was destroying myself." My father kissed my forehead. "We love you, precious. We never stopped." I smiled weakly. I wanted to say more, but my body was giving up. The pain was fading, the voices around me growing distant. I closed my eyes. The last thing I heard was my mother's voice calling my name. "Doctor! Doctor!" The mother screamed. But it was too late.
The news of Precious' death spread fast. People whispered. Some blamed her. Others blamed her parents. Her funeral was quiet, filled with sorrow. Her mother wept uncontrollably. Her father stood still, staring at her coffin, his hands shaking. After the burial, people left, but her parents stayed. They sat beside her grave, holding hands, crying for the daughter they had lost. To parents, pay attention to your children. If their lifestyle changes suddenly, ask questions. Teach them that wealth without hard work is dangerous. No matter what, always remind them that your love is unconditional. To young people, there are no shortcuts in life. Easy money comes at a heavy price. Be careful of the choices you make today. Some mistakes can never be undone. If you ever feel lost, talk to someone who truly cares about you. Her name was Precious. She had dreams. She had a future. But she made the wrong choices. Now,
Precious is only a lesson.
Please, don't forget to like, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification button so we can bring you more amazing stories.